Hey, what's up everybody? Bdf 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so something that came across my desk, so to speak, I guess I can chime in on. 21 Savage, as I told you guys, I've been watching an interview with him very recently, and he's on a campaign to promote his new album, and one of the things that he's saying that seems to be very controversial is F the streets, as in the environment for which people get money outside, so to speak. People, as it considered the streets in black culture, hip-hop culture, street culture. He's saying F the streets because he said, in his mind, the integrity that came with the streets seems to be dead in this internet era. People telling on one another, people not upholding the code, so to speak. It just seems to be dead. And it's a concept that's been going around a lot lately. People talking about the streets is dead. The streets is a myth. I've heard different things like that being said. And then the internet, with the insertion of so many influencers, kind of merging internet world with street politics and making a mockery of them and all of that. There are a lot of people who just feel like, what the streets is considered to be and no longer exists. What you ultimately would consider to be ethics, codes, honor amongst thieves, so to speak, is now lost. But as I was raised to believe that there is no honor amongst thieves, I never quite understood from a worldly lens why people were so confused about whether or not they could find such loyalty or ethics in the streets. From a spiritual lens, it was very obvious to me that streets is where the devil does his work in the world. And a lot of the stuff that's being done out here, whether people consider it to be ethical or not, is unethical. The violence, the selling of poison, different activities that ultimately take from people, things done in the dark. It's a cesspool. It's a trap. It's politics. They're phony. They're riddled in lies and poor energy. It's a space from which sin is accepted. It's the devil's playground. This is what it is. It's what it's always been. A lot of what it is that's being done is the devil's way, and because of it, it's a lot of deception involved in it. The guise of ethics, not ethics at all. People want to sell poison to their neighborhood. They want to say that they're ethical because they're honorable to the people who sell as well, until it becomes a competition situation and then there's violence involved. Even those who are meant to control this so-called streets often engage in unethical behaviors, being bribed, involving in different things, debauchery, looking the other way when they shouldn't, brutality. Even in ethical get back, as they say, get your man, a lot of times that's not what they do. It's firing upon a car with children in it. Innocent bystanders end up getting involved and entangled in the circumstances as victims. It is a myth. It's a lie. Anything involving the devil is essentially filled with deception. What may seem like good ethics are actually people feeding you poison. People feeding you double standards as it pertains to ethics. They're ethical in this way, but unethical in that way, and it's completely fine. That's what the streets is to me, man. A devil's playground, and just like everything done for the devil, it often comes with a blindfold. As I've told you guys many times, when I was doing things that I had no business doing that were against God, I was the furthest away from that reality as possible. I gave myself every excuse for not only doing those things, but that why it was cool to do those things. I was the one person that really couldn't see that my consequences for those behaviors would not be worth it to me. And engaged in things that I had no business doing, and I was so very thrilled to do those things, as if I would be thrilled to receive those consequences. It's a blindfold, man. It's a spiritual blindfold. You're going to feel like you need to do the things that you shouldn't be doing. You're going to feel addicted to the behavior that ultimately brings about destruction to yourself and others. Anything involving the devil is always going to have a blindfold attached to it. You're going to be the furthest person from the reality and the truth. You're going to be the one that does everything you can to keep yourself from being strong in the areas necessary to stay away from those behaviors. Addiction is the same way. I remember when I was knee deep in my weed smoking era. I remember I told my mom I needed weed and believed it. And I tell you today, I don't need weed. I believe that too. But when you're in it, you're the last person that understands that can absorb the truth about it. When you allow yourself to get to a point where you're addicted to something, you're going to be the first person to tell everybody you can't live without it until you are unable to have it for a period of time to which you no longer need it. And in the streets, people tend to suggest what ultimately provides addiction. What I mean by suggest is you're selling somebody some drugs that they're going to become addicted to. Maybe it's their first time trying it. You give it to them, you take back the money. They come back to you a little more addicted. Eventually they become full-fledged crackheads or full-fledged addicts. And this is only possible because of what it is that you gave them initially, for which they were, of course, willing to take. But you were the vessel from which started that process. Now, a lot of times, what the streets will tell you is, drugs sell themselves. If I ain't gonna sell it to them, somebody else will. Yeah, but each person holds themselves accountable for becoming what creates the addiction for others. And suddenly the addiction doesn't have a space from which to be found, because everybody would frown at the idea of being the vessel for which starts the addiction. And if not for a different type of addiction, which is money, which will allow you to be the furthest away from the truth about that, embracing what ultimately disgraces you and ultimately can get you thrown in prison or worse, so that you can align with money that likely you won't be able to keep. Anything done for the devil comes with the blindfold. And everything done out in the streets is done for the devil, man. And the people who are out here in it are the furthest from the truth in regards to it. They're the last ones that'll tell you that this is all disgraceful. They're the last one to tell you, no, hypocrisy is something to shun at all phases and angles of it, not just the angles that we agree to accept. And how does this person go rob all these people they willing to rob, sell all these people permanent addictions, hurt everybody in the name of the money, but then when it comes to them telling on one another, suddenly their ethics are being exposed? And I'm listening to people that I consider to be intelligent individuals who literally find themselves unhappy with people diverting away from what they consider to be moral, but have a spiritual blindfold over the idea that every part of what it is that they agree to is too immoral. And they're the last ones to see it because of that spiritual blindfold. I see a bunch of hypocrites who are not able to identify whether hypocrisy is unacceptable. You want to do everything that you want to do, and you want to get away with it. And the moment that accountability becomes possible, suddenly other people have avoided the ethics that ultimately you think are most appropriate. But the ethics that keep you from being a deterrent to others for the sake of your own wealth doesn't even come to mind. Oh, this is acceptable deviation from morality. It's hypocrisy, just like everything else the devil involves himself in. If I'm going to look at somebody on high and say you're doing all this evil stuff to the people for money, and that's awful, I'm going to look at these people around me who do the same thing and have that same consistency, because that's ultimately the merit, or rather the measure of what a deviation from hypocrisy is supposed to be about. If we're going to look at people for being immoral, why the hell do we draw the line at harming one another for the sake of money? Or why don't we draw the line there? You draw the line at creating the possibility of being held accountable for it. And just like anything else done for the devil, it has a spiritual blindfold on it for those who adapt to it, believe in it, and ultimately stand by it. And they only see a deviation from morality as creating the possibility of being held accountable for the acts that they agree to get along and do. That's why the streets is full of shit, if you ask me. It's selfish. Beyond anything, it's a hypocrite. Beyond anything, it is a liar. And it draws the line in areas that allow for plenty of damage to take place prior to. I want to tell everybody that I do agree with the idea that if you do dirt with someone, then you are a piece of garbage for telling on somebody that you did dirt with, so that you can cut down on the consequences that come your way. But make no mistake, you're a piece of garbage for agreeing to do the thing that you did with that person. And if you're going to draw the line at the area of morality, you would draw the line before you behave in the way that ultimately could be snitched on. Not in the area of accountability. And you want to talk about true morality? Morality will allow for you to leave on the table what otherwise needs to be left on the table in order for you not to cross over that line. But people draw the line at their own poverty. They draw the line at the idea that they're wasting time without being wealthy. They draw the line at being outcasted or being shamed for not ultimately having the things that people demand you have in order to be accepted. They draw the line at their own intentions to gain for self at the cost of others. And for me, that's immoral. Based on my understanding of trying to eliminate the possibility of innocent people becoming victims to my behavior, that would be immoral. But in a world where people agree to harm others for the sake of their own wealth and for the sake of their own backside, then anything that would otherwise hold them accountable for that is ultimately wrong. And the prevention of that accountability is ethical at all costs. That's poison. That's poison we teach one another every day, in every street, in every community. If you're in the streets, you're teaching one another not to draw the line at the actions that harm, but to draw the line at the accountability and the idea that someone create the environment for the accountability to come your way. That's hypocrisy. That's demonic. And like I said, there are a lot of people who have that blindfold over their eyes because they were raised by these streets, because they were taught there's ethics in the streets. And it's the ethics of the streets that ultimately we most respect. It's the integrity. There's no integrity out there. You're selling drugs, you're committing violence. You're creating the environment for which innocent people can either be harmed or traumatized by your intentions. You have already crossed over the threshold of good and bad. You're in the bad now. And you're comfortable with that, and you're fine with that. No one should be following your ethics, your morals. They're in the toilet. And you avoid accountability and honesty that would force you to see that for what it is, which is weakness. A weakness to the pressure of the culture around you. A weakness to hold yourself to a standard that would allow for you to uphold actual integrity, as opposed to this fake integrity that you ultimately adapt to. And you're no different than any other demon doing any other demonic thing. The last one to realize that it's not best for you to do it because the consequences are not worth it for you to engage in. And you got every damn excuse, most definitely starting with your own responsibilities to others and your circumference, and ultimately your own poverty, which can be all inclusive to that, to allow you to be a demon or a villain in somebody else's story to the betterment of your own fake glory. And you want people to respect you, but you're a hypocrite because you allow for so much damage to be done before you draw the line in regards to your morality. And you influence others to do the same thing to the point where so many people are wearing this blindfold that we actually thinking snitching is where people have gone wrong in these streets. No, it's the actions that people would otherwise be able to tell on you for. That should be the line where you don't cross over. But you got to get to this money. You got to keep on gaining these fake stripes out here with all these people who are proving themselves untrustworthy just by what it is they're willing to do with you towards somebody else that isn't going to help them at all. That's going to hurt them. Selling them poison, committing violence, bullying, or whatever it is y'all doing out here in these streets. Selling things that are going to make people worse in the presence of poverty they already in. You ain't giving no service to these people. You're selling poison. You ain't making your neighborhood safer. You're creating conflict in your neighborhoods. You're creating the environment for which a little girl can get hit in the head by a bullet from one of your ops. You ain't doing nothing good for the community. Engaging in those behavior and fake ethics. It's not ethics. You're trying to get away with something you know damn well you shouldn't be doing. You're teaching others that it's okay to do those things so that they won't have it in their heads that maybe they should not. Welcoming them to consequences that may be even worse than what it is that you're going to get. And you're fine with that. You call yourself ethical because you refuse to create the environment for which accountability comes to the next man. While effectively avoiding accountability that comes your way. Or if it comes your way, you die on the hill that you're the only one so that the evil can keep being done in your absence. You're not ethical. You're demonic. And you're willing to fall on the sword to assure that the demonic behavior continues in your absence, as I already mentioned. You didn't snitch. More poison gets to be pushed out from your corner, even after they didn't throw your ass in prison. More creative ways of violence being possible can separate families from one another and bring an end to innocent lives, accidentally, maybe, depending on the ethics of the person engaging in the behavior and where they draw the line. And you want to tell me about some morality? You want to tell me that the worst thing a person can do in them streets is tell on somebody else who's doing evil stuff? and you don't see you're a hypocrite? It's hypocrisy. People are walking hypocrites, none the wiser, because that evil veil is over their eyes. It keeps them from seeing the reality of themselves. And the first thing they want to do when that's disrupted is be defensive. The first thing they do when they realize that that corruption is too also bled into the integrity that they draw the line at. People don't respect what you do from the outside looking in. People don't look at you as something to honor. They will turn on you. They will make a mockery of what it is that you hold most close. Why? Because in the event that you agree to handle the activities of the streets, you do the same thing to them. So of course, when they get on the internet, they're going to be happy seeing all of you put down your best understood integrity for the sake of their entertainment. Because when you're out here in these streets, you don't mind if the events of your activities bring forth trauma to their little civilian lives. When you see them doing well and they happen to go down your street, they getting robbed. So when they're on the internet, you best believe they're going to be pushing for you to put down all of what it is that you hold true. They're going to be rooting for you to self-snitch for their entertainment. They're going to be rooting for you to look like you ain't got no damn sense as it pertains to your ethics. You damn right. They ain't got no loyalty to you, them who harmed them, just like you ain't got no loyalty to them who are innocent in the process. And you want them to understand you. Why would they care to? You're the villain in their story. And self-righteousness with a veil over it that you uphold and you think is considered integrity. It's not integrity. That's the devil having control over your spirit and your brain and your time on this earth. If you let the enemy tell the story, he will tell you exactly what you're telling all of us. That the only thing that's actually wrong is when somebody actually tries to hold you accountable for the wrongdoing that you do. That's the truth. But just like everything the devil do, it's at war with the truth. Just like everything the devil engage in, it's at war with the truth. So they try to run from it. They lie, they cheat. That's what I've been learning in watching this devilish entity that's engaging in this genocide. It's a tracing pattern for what it is that you see in other areas that the devil control. One being these damn streets. And the hypocrisy of one's own self-righteous line of thinking versus the reality of what that thinking provides in regards to damage to others, and how comfortable you are with that damage just because it doesn't necessarily harm you or what it is that matters to you. It's the same devilish bullshit. It's all devilish. The streets, Zionism, American politics, different levels of devilishness, all behaving the same way, upholding its own version of self-righteousness, drawing the line somewhere far away from where the damage begins as it pertains to its actions toward other men. I don't respect it as a civilian. I don't expect that anyone should respect it if they don't have a veil over their eyes, misguiding them toward respecting it. It's nothing to respect. It's people saving their own asses and developing a hunger from being a ruthless person, a hunger for continuing to upkeep the fake shine that comes with being a ruthless person, doing the devil's work. That's what it is. And just like any other addiction, like drugs and alcohol, so too is the money and desire to make it an addiction. The need to have it at all costs, and the need to be able to keep getting it in illegal ways at all costs. the thrill that comes from being a bad guy, and the different Jezebel energy that ultimately is pointed at those who are successful in these measures. Ain't nothing good gonna be drawn to that. Nothing that comes with anything good is gonna be drawn to that. It may look pretty, but you can put some glitter on some shit if you want to. And that's essentially what comes the way of those who engage in devilish behaviors. Shiny shit. Nothing actually worth having. Nothing that actually comes with anything good. Nothing that's attached to a good fate or good consequences or integrity or morals or loyalty. Actual loyalty that's unwavering. That in its intention to remain loyal doesn't, by way of itself, allow for more suffering and destruction. Yeah. And spiritually bankrupt just thinks they're getting a bread. That's it. They're just getting bread, man. That's all. Trying to get to this bread. Everybody in my neighborhood got money. We all told each other we needed money. We beat up people who didn't have money. Of course, it was the devil coercing all of y'all into these hypocritical spaces of fake integrity, so that you could align with things that are morally morbid. And you use poverty as a justification for doing so. But just as you pointed your ambition toward these measures, you could point your ambition toward measures that don't destroy. They don't have you getting locked up. You could influence people around you the same way you influence them to do these things, to do those things. And make it cultured. Make it cool. You refuse to, and that's because you allowed the devil into your circumference to put that veil over your eyes so you couldn't see that those behaviors were not right for you. That the reflection that it placed upon you doesn't look good on you. That the fate that comes with those behaviors are not good for you. And that the world you're leaving behind after you live is worse for you. Having been there doing those things. So I think of the streets. The older I get, the less cool they become. The older I get, the more I see the bodies that are dropped because of them. The older I get, the more I see the hypocrisy that those who engage in them ultimately engage in. The older I get, the more I realize how arrested the development of the minds who survived them ultimately find themselves in morally. How wasted the minds of those who survived them but found themselves in prison ultimately become for having engaged in them. Nothing good came of them people. They're locked away in cages with all their morality, all their strength, all their muscles, surrounded by nothing but men. Far away from their children to raise them to be better than what it is they were. If they weren't in those spaces, and they're in the grave. Body's no longer strong. Legacy in somebody's brain who's likely strung out on drugs or smart enough to have gotten away from those behaviors as they think about what happened to them as a motivation to do so. Streets created a lot of them stories. Broken homes, broken men. Trying to live up to a morality that isn't real. Trying to align with a glory that doesn't inspire anything good at all. And you want to tell me that there's integrity out there, and I just tell you, you've been fed poison just like anybody else who's doing evil out here and can't see it. You were misguided. You were given something that wasn't good for you. And nobody's ever suggested to you that in a way that you could ultimately absorb. I hope I just did. You were fed poison. You're not a part of some elite group of individuals who survived something great. That's not what that is. You pass forward something that's worse going forward so long as you align with that. You ain't gonna find nothing but the devil outside, man. The only thing that comes with the devil is fake. Fake lies, deception, misdirection, poor culture, anything that leads you down a path of destruction. That's all you're going to find next to the devil. That's it. You'll find nothing else. Traps, consequences that suck, things that you wish you didn't do, regret. That's all you're gonna find, man. More misguided individuals who can't wait to welcome their own destruction without actually ever really knowing it until it's too late. Misguided souls, misguiding souls, and blind leading the blind. That's all you're gonna find. And it's all cool when you're young in the environment where this is upheld, which is why you needed something like the internet to come by and dispel all of that and show all of its hypocrisy and all of its intricate politics and deviousness and fake morality. You needed something to show itself to itself, to say, yo, there's no honor amongst thieves. You're not going to be respected. Not by the people next to you, no matter how much they lie to you, because they're doing the devil's work, so they're going to lie. And not by the people who don't understand you, who are far away from it. They're going to look at you as you some type of imbecile who isn't smart enough to step themselves out of traps that are meant for their destruction. A lot of y'all saying the streets made me what I am. What are you? In a lot of cases, the answer is somebody who's destined to lead others toward destruction. Somebody who's destined to run into consequences that are not worth living. Someone who's destined to uphold the culture of being fine with destruction coming from within oneself, so long as they're making money off of it. Hypocrisy. I see poor culture being passed on to new generations of people because of your hell-bent nature in regards to upholding it yourself. Those who tell me the streets made them, this is what I see. Is you standing on that hill making it look cool so somebody else will stand on that hill and get shot off of it. The world would be best if you weren't made, so that culture could be dead with your ass. So that you could be one of more reasons why we should deviate from it. Because you upholding some mindset with that veil over your eyes that the devil has over you, keeping you from seeing what's best, the forest for the damn trees. And you're going to influence some other impressionable mind to continue on that path. That's what I see. Misguided minds, hell-bent to misguide minds, hell-bent to destroy humanity, one crime at a time. And it draws this line at what ultimately holds it accountable. It draws the line at ultimately what gets it away from the victims that it ultimately wants to victimize. What pulls it off of the streets to influence others to their own defeat. Just like any other cancerous organism, it's going to try to avoid whatever's going to keep it from being more of a cancer. Just like any other devilish entity, it's going to try to avoid the accountability so that it can multiply its own numbers. I want to tell all of y'all, streets, the devil's playground, and it's one of many devilish entities in this world meant to destroy us all. Meant to misguide us and have us welcoming our own poison into our lives. Meant to have us thinking that morality is drawing a line at accountability coming our way. Meant to have us thinking that we're in some elite group of people because we're willing to do things that are awful to other people. Just like any other cancerous organism. That's exactly what it is. And it seemed cool when you're young. If you're raised in an environment where everybody's upholding it and making it sound like it's glory. But at the end of the day, it ain't meant for anything but the destruction of your people and the ending of your bloodline. If it can claim your life, They keep you from passing forward anyone else, keep you from passing forward progressive, productive people that are not going to spend the rest of their lives in prison or in the little of the lives that they have doing things that are ultimately going to decay their souls. That's all it's here for. That's all it's out here to do. And misguide young people into thinking that it's okay to throw their lives away and to drag others with them too. That's all it's for. To create new addicts, new victims of violence. No more turned out souls and broken spirits. That's all it is. That's what you upholding. You call it morality. I call it a cancer trying to survive. You call it integrity. I label it hypocrisy and point out the receipts for why. It's a trap. You got that right when you call it that. It ain't cool, man. That's the last thing it is, because it leads you to somewhere extremely hot. And if you get closer to God and you align with the intentions that were left here for your betterment, and the teachings that are left here for actual integrity and a balance away from avoided accountability towards truth, what you'll find out is you ain't supposed to be doing any of this. Not to get yourself out of poverty, not because somebody taught you that, not because you see other people getting away with it and shining, not because you've glorified those who were martyrs in that circumstance. They died in a blaze of glory, and somehow within your twisted mind you think that's something you should be doing too. None of that is any good. That's a veil over your eyes keeping you from seeing the truth. And all of this is for the devil's intentions toward humanity. That's it. That's all it is. Created by people who are powerful in a lot of cases, marginalizing communities into these destructive positions from which to fight or flight. Sins, similar sins committed by more powerful men, creating the environment that the devil can use to decay the world. That's what I see. The corruption on high, trickling down to others, to create the trauma necessary to try to cope with, for which many can capitalize on and get themselves out of poverty, feeding others what would ultimately allow for them to pacify their own trauma and unhappiness, making junkies out of all of them. That's what I see. A cesspool, it's a toilet, it's a garbage can of a spiritual nature. This may not be popular amongst my people because a lot of us are warped in that mentality. A lot of us believe the streets built us and made us who we are. What we don't realize is that if we glorify that, we're likely, as I already described, just one more person that's passing forward the trauma that ultimately others are going to have in place for not being led the right way. You believe in it so much because the devil got that much of his teeth sunk into your neck. You uphold it that strong because it's meant for you to do so to influence somebody else to do wrong and to suffer the consequences from doing that. That's all that is. So I applaud somebody like 21 Savage for at least suggesting out there, whether he believes it or not, that this should be something to give the finger to, because it really is. That these cultures out here don't have any integrity in it at all. All it's trying to do is avoid accountability. That's it. All it's trying to do is continue to survive so it can eat away at humanity and goodness the best way it can. Being the cancer it is. That's all it's for. continue to engage in the misdirection and deception and lies and selective humanity politics and tribalism and all the different type of things that ultimately destroy, pushing poison on the people to cloud their mind and then further them into spaces that the devil can control. That's all it is for. And if we're going to speak truth to power, we need to speak truth to these environments that don't do nothing but make the worst out of us and turn us into cowards, avoiding accountability. Turn us into people that are far away from actual humility, actual integrity, actual loyalty, actual productivity, actual sustainability of wealth. None of which you're going to find out here. And you know what a street person going to tell you? Don't listen to him tell you anything about the streets because he wasn't out in them. Thank God, because if I was, I'd be out here likely pushing forth venom, meant to poison everybody who would watch me, trying to tell you to uphold the integrity of something that does not have any integrity at all. The only thing the streets ever gave me was an understanding I need to stay out of it. And that's all it's ever done for me. The only thing the streets has ever done, shown me what not to be. What would rot me from the inside out if I were to subscribe to it the way a lot of y'all do. And bring me further and further away from God, away from integrity, away from understanding, away from honesty, away from valuing honesty for the sake of my own backside, trying to survive in this nonsense. Selective politicking, selective humanity as it pertains to dividing myself off tribally from somebody that's probably related to me, aligning with people who are likely going to turn on me because of proximity, taking up arms against my brothers, never at all turning my vitriol toward those who created the environment from which I suffer, and then upholding that nonsense even when it's suggested to me that such exists, because I can't get away from this. I'm addicted to it. I was raised by it, so I owe myself to it. It's a veil that's over the eyes of many, continuing to bring forth the environment from which plenty will suffer from. Plenty dumb, if you ask me. That's why I'm not mad at anybody who's done with it. Bdf 44, I thank you all for watching. I'm out.